I want to start with your first venture. So at age 23, you launched Real Sport, all right? You might have had other ventures before this at uni, I've heard, but this is the one that really, the home run, right? So you launched what became one of the world's most successful esports platforms, circa 10 million monthly users.
9 million. I've got to be fair. I've got to be fair. Yeah.
Okay. And you sold it in 2018 for multiple millions to Gfinity. Tell me about that journey, mate, because that's the dream that someone like myself or other entrepreneurs really want to achieve, that level of success. Tell me about building that, and I guess advice that you could give to other entrepreneurs. I'm fishing for myself here, but tell me about that story.
Yeah, 100%. So with Real Sport, I think a lesson that we learned very, very early on is the solution that you have in mind when going to market is never really what you're going to end up getting traction on, because realistically you might fall in love with a problem, you might have an inkling as to what the solution could be, but unlikely that that's where you're going to see significant traction. And especially if you're scaling in that way, it's going to really adapt over time. So we started Real Sport really as a podcast initially.
Yes.
I was always a big fan of podcasting. It was really before YouTube monetization was significant that way. This was still a time when people were going viral every day, and people were very, very skeptical. It was like, oh great, what are you going to do? You're going to buy your meal in views, right? This is still a little while ago. But what we found is if we could partner with the right brands, actually we were better off monetizing through those relationships than relying on ad monetization in that way at that time. And then we found after a little while, so this is probably middle of 2012, what we found after a while is that there were lots and lots of people approaching this, lots of people writing sports blogs. This was just at a time when sports journalism was having a bit of a renaissance on Twitter.
Sure.
And lots of people were just entering online content creation from a more traditional perspective. And they may have had their own blogs online, but they weren't really entering the wider creator community. So we found that there was a massive opportunity to educate people and make that content creation space a bit more accessible as well. So we started building out tools that would allow people to create podcasts, videos, other types of content, originally for sports and then into esports and gaming, as you said, and essentially helping them optimize that content for social. Super standard now, quite bleeding edge back in 2012, 2013. So we got really fortunate with that business, lots of ups and downs along the way, of course, but we did some big deals with some of the biggest sports rights holders in the world, the NBA, the NFL, the Premier League. Did some amazing brand deals with the likes of Domino's Pizza, Lucozade, Lynx, scaled that business to about 9 million monthly active unique users. Super exciting journey, lots of luck along the way, of course.
Yes.
And then, as you said, acquired by Gfinity in 2018, which was
amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a really, really amazing journey on that side, and learned a hell of a lot as well.
Do you remember the moment getting the money in the bank account from the transaction?
Yeah. So we got really fortunate with the exit that we took all of the cash up front.
Okay,
so
cool.
it was there was two parts to the deal. There was a cash element and then a shares element. But we managed to get all the shares up front. So yeah, it was really amazing. But one of the interesting things that happened to me, and from speaking to other founders where maybe their startup hasn't worked out, the day after you are no longer the founder and CEO of X is an identity crisis.
Yeah.
It's like, well, who am I today? What do I do next? Yeah. And it was really interesting. I loved Gfinity, and there was lots of amazing things. The CEO who acquired us was a guy called Gary Cook. Gary was the CEO of Man City during the takeover from the Mansours. Okay, wow. He was on the board of the UFC, on the board of Nike. Like, amazing guy to learn from in that space. But going from small, scrappy startup, although we were less small at the time we were acquired, to senior management at a PLC, real steep learning curve. I don't necessarily enjoy publicly listed companies. I think there's a lot of pragmatism, not in necessarily the best way, around quarterly results and the impact on share price.
Sure.
So I knew very quickly that I wasn't going to stay there for a long time. And you're literally going through like, well, who am I? What do I do next? Yeah. And there was a while I was like, oh, I'm going to go work with guide dogs, or I'm going to be trained to be a fireman. Like, I had no idea what I was going to do next. It was an interesting learning experience on that side as well.
I had exactly the same conversation with a mutual friend, Nick Telson, last week, I think, about when he sold Design by Night. He said that was his most depressing moment of his life. Is that the sort of thing that you're trying to relate to here? And like, great to get the money, but who am I? What am I doing? You know, why am I here?
100%, and that's it. I remember me and my co-founder threw a party for a few of our friends who had been, supporters along the way. And that night, I was smoking at the time. I was having a cigarette on the balcony of this place, and one of my friends was like, "This is the most depressed I've seen you," on the night that we sold and got the money in. Absolutely relate to that.
Okay.